Hi, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today's layout is for Mixed Media Frenzy, and that's when a group of us get together every Friday and we either scrap lift or take inspiration from the same layout. So this week all of us are scrap lifting this layout by Missy Whidden. It's a gorgeous layout. I think it was picked by Ronnie this week, so really good choice. And I've popped it up in the top right corner there, so you can compare that to what I'm doing. So I've got two cut files here, very similar to Missy's. Both of mine are from Peartree Cutfiles. I'm using a photo of my husband and I from our wedding day, and I'm going very pink on this layout. I'm starting with a patterned paper here by Amy Tangerine. It's got black hearts and black font all over it, kind of like a typewriter font. I can't remember off the top of my head what it says, but it's quite nice sentiments, sort of lovey-dovey sentiments, so perfect for a wedding layout. So I've cut a strip off there and I've just distressed the edge with my edge distresser. And I'm just bringing my photo and cut file in just to kind of see where I want to place it. I'd cut my cut file twice at the beginning, once slightly larger than the other because I wasn't sure quite how big I wanted that to be. And I've pulled out my stash of pink stuff, which up until recently has not been used. I'm not one for scrapping pink or flowers, so anything pink, flowers, butterflies, anything like that gets put in a box and never touched. But recently I've fancied a bit of a change, so I have been using a lot of florals and pinks, so I'm slowly making my way through the box of stuff that got hidden away. And a lot of this stuff is from Cocoa Vanilla Studio collections. The butterflies there are from two different papers, two different collections, so yeah, it's nice to finally get a chance to use some of these bits. So I'm starting off with this scalloped border cut file. This is from Peartree Cutfiles, one of the newer releases. I think it's called Build a Border, this set, and you get a set of about 5 or 6 different borders. So I've taken out the inner piece of this and used this one, and it's got different sized scallops, so you've got some small and some large there. And I've gone over it with my black soot distress ink to colour it. I didn't want to cut it onto black cardstock, but I didn't want it quite as dark as black. I did it quite softly with a blending tool. I did think at this point that I would go back over it at the end and make it a bit darker, but I actually don't. I leave it as it is. So it's kind of more of a charcoal colour, but it goes really, really well with my layout. So I'm going to stick that piece of pattern paper down there, and then I'm going to have my scallop cut file sticking out, pretty much very similar to the original by Missy. And I'm just gluing that down. I've only put a tiny bit of PVA glue down there because I'm going to go over that with my sewing machine, and as if by magic it's done. So I've done 2 rows of straight stitch, one in black and one in bright pink. And now I'm happy with that part of my layout, I can move on to my mixed media. So I'm starting with a Nouveau Mica Mist spray in, I think it's called Turkish Rose, and these sprays are gorgeous. They really are a mist more than a spray. They come out so gentle and soft, they don't completely cover your layout, and they're really, really shimmery, so I love them. So I've sprayed some of that on my background there. And then I've got this cut file from Peartree Cutfiles. It's the large floral cluster, I think it's called, from the February release. And I'm using some different shades of pink here to colour that. So I've used some picked raspberry distress ink, and I've mixed in a bit of Lindy's Starburst spray in high maintenance magenta, and that's to add a little bit of shimmer. Then I've got a Distress Oxide in picked raspberry, and I'm just adding a bit of that and just smudging it out with my finger a little bit, just trying to get some variation on the shades. And then I'm going to finish off all the outer petals with some picked raspberry Distress ink. And I didn't really add much water to those at all, just painted them on straight. And then this green here is another Starburst spray by Lindy's. Can't remember the shade of that one, I'll have to pop it in the description box. But I'm just doing all the leaves green, and then there's some little white, I'm not sure if they were buds or berries, but I'm going to leave those white, as you can see, and I've got this white shimmer spray here that I'm just going to go over there with them, just using the spray nozzle there to do that, just to add a little bit of shimmer so that they don't look so flat compared to the rest of the file. And I'm not going to back my cut file, I'm going to leave it open so that you can see my mixed media through it. And I love how that's looking. So I want to add a bit more colour to my background. So I've pulled out a Distress ink in Spun Sugar, watering that down and just using the packaging technique to add a bit of that to my background. I haven't bothered using gesso at all on this layout. I wasn't planning on adding a lot of water, so really didn't think I would need it. And then I'm coming back in with that Nouveau mist spray to add a bit more of that because it really is so shimmery. It's amazing how much my background shimmers. And then I think this is the Distress Oxide in Picked Raspberry, and just adding a bit of splattering around just to add a bit of a darker tone of pink. I do find the Distress Oxide comes out a lot more of a kind of powdery pink than the Distress ink. They're both Picked Raspberry, but I do find there is a massive difference between the two. So that's kind of how my layout is going to look with my mixed media. So now I can move on to adding some layers behind my photo. So as always, I just add a white layer of cardstock behind it first. And then this patterned paper here, I'm going to use the black and white side. It's from Vicky Boutin Colour Kaleidoscope. I was hoarding it, but I recently cut into it for another layout, so now I'm using any excuse to use it because I really do love it. And then I've got this pink here, which is from one of the CVS collections. And I'm just distressing the edges there as I go. So I'm looking at my layout here and I realise I want a bit more pink in my background. It's looking a little bit too soft. So this is the Picked Raspberry Distress ink, and it's more of a hot pink, so it adds a really nice bright colour to my background. So again, just using the packaging technique to add some of that. And I've just used a kitchen towel each time to dry it rather than my heat gun, because I find it warps a lot less. My heat gun really makes my pages warp, so I try to avoid it when I can. So now I'm happy with my mixed media, I can move on to embellishing. So I've got some butterflies here I've fussy cut from a Cocoa Vanilla Studio collection. I've got loads of florals, that again from the CVS collection. I've got those bright pink flowers there. I think they're from a Paige Evans collection, but they were looking a bit too kind of cartoon-like for my layout. They just didn't really fit well, even though the floral shapes were quite similar to that of my cut file. I just didn't think they looked right, and they didn't have the right feel for this layout. So I'm going to use the ones from Cocoa Vanilla instead, and I think they're all from the Happiness collection. But I do decide to swap my butterflies out, and the ones that are on my page at the moment are still Cocoa Vanilla, but I think that's from the Unforgettable collection. So they're not quite as bright pink, but they do have some sort of black and white tones on as well, which worked really well with the patterned paper I've used on the left hand side. As always with me, I love lots of dimension and texture on my layouts, so I'm adding some foam behind my photo to raise it up off the page a bit, and that helps to draw your eye to it a bit more. And I've also added a pink frame behind that. This chipboard piece here says "Love You," and that's going to act as my title for this page. So I'm just going to add that to the right of my photo with some bright pink thread tangled behind it when I eventually get it right. I'm really bad with threads. I can never get my clusters to look nice. Missy Whidden makes it look so easy, but I just end up in a mess. So yeah, I do avoid them when I can, and I generally only put them behind circular things because I find them a bit easier to work with that way. So I've got these florals here on the left hand side. I'm having to raise some of the edges up with foam there just to bring them to the same layout as my photo. And then the 3 butterflies, I've just applied some glossy accents to the kind of the body part of them, so that leaves the wings free to kind of fold up a bit and adds a lot more depth and dimension to the page. I've added a chipboard bird over to the right there. I've had this for ages and it's not something I'm ever likely to use on a layout. And on Missy's original, she actually has a bird there, so I thought it would be the perfect excuse to use this bird and get it out of my stash. So there's a random bird there, and I've balanced that out with a chipboard butterfly just at the top of my photo on the other side there. I'm adding a pink flare as well, just underneath those 2 flowers in that bottom corner, just for a bit more interest. And I just need to add a bit more foam just to kind of support everything and make sure it's stuck down and not going to ping off once it's in an album. I think I'm almost done here. I've just got my 2 favourite finishing touches to go. The last things I generally do with my layouts are add some Bramble Fox perspectives and some Nouveau drops, and why should this layout be any different? So I've got these mini heart perspectives here from Bramble Fox. I love these. I've used 2 in a pale pink shade and 1 in, it's kind of like an ivory silverish kind of pearlescent colour. It's just 3 little hearts I've added there on my page. And then I'm finishing off with some glitter Nouveau drops. I've added 2 massive drops to the centre of those 2 flowers, and then just scattered a few more drops around the page. And that's my layout finished. So looks quite similar to Missy's, different colour scheme, obviously different cut files, but yeah, I think I stuck quite closely to this one. I've got lots of close-ups for you. Please check out the description box below and you'll find the links to all the other ladies taking part in today's hop. It'd be great if you could work your way through and hit the subscribe button as you go. So thank you very much again, and I'll see you next time.